it's hard to win the votes of the people you want to lead if your message to them is that the country they live in is inherently bad.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth. The fact that it is the greatest nation on God's green earth is something that ought to be nonpartisan. It ought to be understood by all Americans that we are lucky to live here. We're lucky, particularly if we're born here. And to put on this 250th anniversary of America's founding, to put our nation on something of a pedestal. This could become a partisan issue. Why? Well, because David Drucker, who is a columnist covering politics and policy, a senior writer for The Dispatch, he's also the author of In Trump's Shadow, The Battle for 2024 and the Future of the GOP. He has written a column that I mentioned yesterday, and I think deserves a great deal of attention, particularly from Democrats. He writes on Democrats trying to reclaim patriotism. And before we get to that, just a reminder to subscribe. It's free. It costs you nothing. To our growing YouTube channel, Michael Medved Official, so that you can see these conversations that we engage in and not just hear them. The piece by David Drucker, Democrats are trying to reclaim patriotism from the right. And this could be the deciding issue, could it not, on the upcoming midterm elections?
I don't think it's a deciding issue, Michael, in the midterm elections by any stretch. I do think when you look at the 2028 presidential election, which comes next, from a political standpoint, it's hard to win the votes of the people you want to lead if your message to them is that the country they live in is inherently bad, right? And we all know that American history has its flaws. We're an imperfect nation, and that should always be recognized. And history should be treated for what it is, not what people wish it was. But the country has made a lot of progress over the past 250 years. And, sometimes where Democrats have gotten themselves caught up in the past, let's say 5 years or so, I think really in the post-COVID era, is focusing too much on the flaws, not giving equal attention to the progress. And I'm not saying this necessarily because I think Democrats have spent too much time focusing on the flaws. What I'm reporting is that the Democrats that I talk to that are concerned about fielding a general election candidate who is broadly electable is that they believe the party, for very good and understandable reasons, was focused too much on the flaws of the past and how they affected marginalized communities and not enough on the progress. And when you want to win swing voters and independents in battleground states, particularly in the Midwest, where a lot of people of all political stripes feel good about their country and feel that we are basically a good country and have been a force for good in the world, you need to meet them where they are on that. And so there's been a concerted effort among a lot of Democrats to push back against the left wing of their party and make it clear that Democrats too believe that the United States is a good and great country and that they are patriotic just like most people.
Okay, we have coming up, I think they are saying that they're going to have 3,000 different rallies as part of the No Kings movement. They got 5 million estimated participants last time. They should have a lot of people out there. What should people who are attending those rallies or who want to do something that focuses criticism on President Trump, what should they be careful about if they regain this patriotic ground or appearance that you're advocating for?
Well, look, I mean, criticizing our leaders is as American as apple pie. So that in and of itself is patriotic. I think it's about the visuals, right? I mean, there's a beach town where my family and I spend a lot of time, and every Saturday there are anti-Trump administration protests, and they're on it's like it's organized by one group, but they're on both sides of a highway, and separated by about a mile or so. And the protesters are waving American flags, and they have these placards that they've made at home that paint that cast their criticism of the administration, um, as a reaction to, as based in their love of country and fidelity to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So, Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and liberals, they'll be mad. They'll get mad, right, about different things, and they'll oppose, this party or that party, depending on who's in power. As long as, from a political standpoint and the visual of politics, you cast that as fidelity to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and you wave a bunch of American flags, and and you don't have anything to worry about, because it's expected in this country that we'll criticize our leaders. I mean, it's like breathing.
Well, again, the idea of waving American flags and maybe fewer Mexican flags or Palestinian flags or something else. Old Glory seems to be something that the Democrats need to embrace, and that's what you argue in your column. In terms of the winner of the primary in Illinois just yesterday, Stratton, who was the lieutenant governor, who will be the Democratic nominee, for United States Senate, for an open Senate seat. She used an ad that featured repeated and repeated and repeated F Trump, F Trump. Is that help with the process you're talking about?
I don't know that relates to the process I'm talking about. I mean, look, this is definitely how Democrats feel these days. And when Biden was in office, I mean, President Trump himself had a lot of very, let's say, he used a lot of pejorative language when it came to President Biden, and still does. That might be a separate issue. If you're going to run as the party that conducts itself normally, does that sort of thing help? But I don't know that any of that matters in any event. I think what's important, to just pick up on something you said a minute ago, is what can sometimes hurt Democrats is when there are these campus protests against Israel, and everybody's, dressed up like a Hamas terrorist and waving a flag like that, right, the black flag, or when you have protests, many very legitimately understandable protests against the administration's mass deportation program, but you're waving flags from other countries rather than the American flag. I think you undercut your message, put it that way. And the Democrats that I talked to for the column, the whole point they're making is that it's harder to win elections when the voters you need to persuade see those visuals, right? And this is about persuasion and communication and empathy, getting voters that may not believe they're directly affected by your, cause, to empathize with you. And you do that by rooting everything in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and love of country and what America is supposed to be. And it's, for, civil rights icons in this country and others that have been successful, right? They always rooted their argument in what America was supposed to be based on its own creed and founding documents. That works a lot better than saying that the whole project is illegitimate and fatally flawed versus just flawed.
But your point is, I think, unassailable and outstanding. Thanks to David Drucker. His column is posted at michaelmedved.com.